Hi, Studio Recap here. Today, we're going to talk about a movie called What Lies Below in mystery and horror genres. Spoiler alert is on. Watch out and take care. The story begins with a 16-year-old girl named Liberty Wells, who is at a summer camp engrossed in a book. A young boy, without her permission, takes a picture of her, which makes her angry. A little later, her mother, Michelle, arrives to pick her up and drives her away. Michelle tries to talk to Libby and get her attention, but Libby seems too absorbed in her book to respond. Since she can't get her daughter to engage in conversation, Michelle, unlike usual, offers Libby the chance to drive if she wants to. Libby happily accepts and starts driving. A little while later, she notices a for sale sign in front of their house and is shocked. Michelle explains that they need money for Libby's college expenses, so she has put the house up for sale. Libby also notices an expensive watch on her mother's wrist. When she asks about it, Michelle says it was a gift and then admits that she has been living with her boyfriend for some time. When they arrive at Lakeside Cabin, Michelle calls out for her boyfriend, John. Libby is taken aback when she sees him. He is an attractive and charismatic man. John emerges from the lake and introduces himself to her. Then, he hands her a gift, saying, "I know you're into archaeology." Libby opens the box and finds a bracelet adorned with stones of life from the Navajo tribe. John explains why the bracelet is special, and Libby thanks him. She then goes to her room, changes into an eye-catching blue dress, and heads downstairs. While John and Michelle are preparing dinner, Libby walks in. She sits at the table and starts asking questions, trying to learn more about John. She wants to know how he and her mother met. Michelle explains that one day while she was writing on the porch, John suddenly appeared. John then shares that he is an aquatic genetics specialist. He is part of a research team studying animals that contribute to freshwater production. He claims to be deeply concerned about the planet and dedicated to solving environmental problems. John goes into detail about his work, once again captivating both Michelle and Libby. As he speaks, a piece of food gets caught in his throat, making him cough loudly. He abruptly gets up from the table in a strange manner. A moment later, he returns, apologizing for the interruption. Then, he moves closer to Michelle, pulling her into an embrace. While holding Michelle, he places a hand on Libby's shoulder and gives her a meaningful smile. Libby finds this incredibly odd. That night, she can't stop thinking about John's behavior. Boston Foch starts touching her own body absent-mindedly. She eventually leaves her room to grab a drink from the fridge, but as she walks past her mother's bedroom, she hears noises Michelle and John seem to be making love. Curious, she crouches down and peeks through a small gap under the door. Suddenly, she hears someone approaching. Panicking, she rushes back to her room without even closing the door behind her. John appears in the hallway, glancing toward her room. Libby quickly pretends to be asleep. The next morning, she wakes up and finds her mother and John in the kitchen. She barges into the room, unintentionally interrupting them. Michelle suggests they go for a walk, but Libby looks surprised and says, "Today is August 28th. We're supposed to follow our tradition. It's the two of us. This day is special to Libby." Michelle hesitates, but eventually agrees. Near a tree, Libby digs a small hole and retrieves a tin can buried in the ground. She kisses, and then opens it, and she puts a note inside. Then she hands another tin can to her mother. But Michelle shakes her head and says she has nothing to add this year. Libby is hurt. "You never really cared about this," she says. "You never even left a note for Grandpa." Michelle, now visibly irritated, snaps, "I don't want to do this because my father never loved me." She then reveals painful memories about how her father mistreated her. Upset, she storms back to the cabin. Libby stays silent for a moment, then starts wandering around. As she lifts a rock, a centipede crawls onto her hand, its sting leaving a sharp pain. Frightened, she instinctively raises her foot, ready to crush it. Just then, John stops her and tells her it's a scolpendra, a rare species of centipede. He lifts another rock, revealing a cluster of them underneath, and explains that the centipede was only trying to protect its young. John gently takes Libby's hand, blows on the sting, and assures her that although the bite is venomous, it's nothing to worry about. They continue talking, growing more comfortable with each other. John senses that Libby's real issue is with his relationship with Michelle. He apologizes to her and says, "If you want, I can leave. I don't want to come between you and your mom." But Libby shakes her head. "No," she tells him. "You should stay." After that, she goes to her mother's room to make amends. Michelle, weak from a severe stomachache, is lying in bed. Seeing her like this, Libby feels guilty. Michelle softly apologizes, and Libby, in turn, says sorry for the way she acted. Michelle tells her daughter that she plans to marry John. Libby congratulates her, claiming to be happy, but it's clear she's not excited about it at all. Michelle shares a secret with her daughter. In reality, John doesn't know Michelle's real age. He thinks she's 35 while she's actually 42. When Lily goes to her room, she does more research on scolopendras. She looks out the window and sees John taking off his shirt, showing off his attractive body. She sees the bracelet John gave her and carefully examines it. After a while, Libby decides to visit John and bring him a drink. She goes to the basement where he works and enters with a flashlight. John is seen in a red-lit environment. He walks over to her and refuses the drink, explaining that sodium consumption is harmful to him. John suggests that Libby should visit his workspace. Libby sees large aquariums and strange creatures that John calls suckerfish. He talks more with Libby about the fish and their benefits, as she seems interested in the topic. Libby asks about her mom getting married. John claims that Michelle is special to him and he's very much in love with her. He then suggests they go to the lake to collect more samples. Libby helps him take a sample from the lake. During this, they talk about Libby's university plans. Libby mentions that she plans to go to Cambridge University but hasn't told her mom yet because Michelle is very dependent on her. John promises to keep her secret. Suddenly, Libby gets her period, and blood spills in the boat. Libby gets embarrassed, but John uses her shirt to cover up the bleeding. Then he licks her bloody hand and comforts her. Feeling very embarrassed and upset, she leaves the area and goes to the bathroom. John comes to the bathroom and calls out to her, but she doesn't answer. He gets closer and sniffs the shirt he used to cover the blood in the boat. After the shower, Libby goes to her mom's room to see if she's feeling better. She finds John in her mom's room, massaging her mom's back. When Libby enters, John gives her a strange stare. Libby closes the door and tries to go to the basement, but the door is locked. She then tries to access it from the outside of the house, but all light sources are blocked by John. She feels like John is hiding something. So, she messages her best friend Miley, asking her to come over. Millie replies that she can't come today. Lee texts her saying that her mom is marrying a strange man. Meanwhile, she notices that John left her a sandwich with a note. That night, Liddy sees a red light. She heads to the window to locate the source and sees that John is heading toward the red light coming from the lake. When he enters the lake, the light turns off. Liddy is scared and confused. She goes to her mom to tell her what she saw, but Michelle doesn't respond. Libby goes to the lake and confronts John. When John sees Libby's suspicion, he claims he suffers from a sleepwalking disorder, but Libby is not convinced and leaves. The next day, Michelle calls Libby. John had gone for a walk and wouldn't return until 2 hours later. Michelle, feeling very ill, asks Libby to drive to the pharmacy to get medicine for her stomach pain and a pregnancy test. Libby suggests her mom call an ambulance since she still didn't have a driver's license. Besides, Miley was supposed to come over, but her mom, in so much pain, urgently asks her to leave quickly. Libby rushes to town and buys the medicine. While there, she sees John walking with a woman. She follows him outside the pharmacy, but the cashier stops her because she forgot to pay for the medicine. When Libby gets home, she finds Miley in the living room. She gives her mom the medicine and notices John is in her mom's room. Michelle continues to rest, and John promises to take care of her. John gives Libby a threatening smile. Libby leaves the room to talk to Miley. Miley thinks John is very hot and attractive. Libby tells her friend about what she saw the previous night. Now, knowing more about John, Libby feels her friend is in danger and decides to go talk to her friend's mom. Later, Libby wakes up in her bed and goes to find Miley. She sees Michelle and John watching old videos of Libby. Michelle claims that Miley left. Then Michelle informs Libby that she's pregnant. This news deeply impacts Libby. Michelle is upset by her daughter's cold reaction. Libby tries to push the mysterious man away, but Michelle angrily says that Libby always behaves strangely towards the men who enter her life. John hugs Michelle, and Libby angrily pulls her mother away from him. In a fit of rage, Michelle slaps her daughter. Libby, in return, tells John her mother's real age. John is very upset by this revelation. He storms out angrily. When Michelle tries to stop him, John's face completely changes. Michelle and Libby argue. After some time, Libby is shocked by loud banging sounds and goes outside the cabin to find the source. She searches around the cabin, then looks at the lake, but can't make out anything with the flashlight. Libby goes to her mother's room and sees John and Michelle together, engaging in intimate activity. Strange things protrude from John's back, and this is when Libby realizes that he is not a normal man. He might not even be human. Libby, terrified, leaves the room but returns shortly after, only to find the bed empty. She goes to the lake and sees something that looks like a spaceship in the water. She uses the car's headlights to illuminate the area, but when she gets out of the car, she forgets to pull the handbrake. The car begins to roll toward the lake. Libby notices something strange in the water, a shape resembling a spaceship. She tries to contact Miley for help, is unsuccessful. Libby hears strange noises coming from the basement. When she investigates, she finds her mother's lower half submerged in a tank of water. She attempts to save her mother, but John arrives, his foot resembling that of an alien. It then transforms into a human foot. Libby hides quickly and watches as her mother, in a horrible condition, gives birth to a strange creature in the water. Michelle calls John a monster. Meanwhile, Libby is shocked to discover Miley's corpse and realizes her friend has been killed. John takes the newly born creature near the lake. Liddy scratches part of the window and watches as John spits out a strange substance shaped like a ball and feeds it to the creature. Liddy tries to help her mother escape, but Michelle urges her to run away. Just as John approaches, Libby locks the door. Liddy contacts the police, but there's a device in the basement preventing her phone from receiving a signal. John demands that she open the door. Libby destroys the device and calls police, asking for help. John, now becoming less human, grows more agitated. While Libby talks to the police, John breaks through the window and enters the basement, now resembling a monster. When he finds Libby, he sticks out a strange, long tongue, terrifying her. Left with no choice but to fight back, Libby throws salt and strikes at the monstrous figure, driving the half-human, half-monster John away. He collapses to the floor, and Libby quickly helps her mother escape. Outside the cabin, Michelle collapses and apologizes to Libby for not believing her. Suddenly Michelle, terrified, tells her daughter to be careful. In the next scene, we see Libby locked in the basement. When she wakes up, John's clones begin to appear, breaking the walls of the room with their hands, revealing the bodies of many women. These creatures had been using women for reproduction, causing horrific effects on humans. Liddy screams in fear and pain. One of the clones approaches her and spits out a blue orb from its mouth, forcibly placing it into Libby's mouth. Libby faints again. When she wakes up, she finds herself trapped in a diamond-shaped tank surrounded by other bodies. With a strange smile, Libby shows that she's moved far away from her humanity, and the film ends this way,